One.
Okay. Please state your name, where you live, and your job.
Well, my name is Joyce Taylor, and I live actually on the east side in Bellevue, but I work in Seattle. I am a news anchor and reporter, and I've worked in the Northwest for more than 30 years. I was first hired in the Seattle area in 1988. Coincidentally, the same year that Rich Marriott came to work at KING5. So we go back that far. We both started at King around the same time. So yeah, I've been working here quite a long time. The industry has changed dramatically since I started more than 30 years ago.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Millie.
Where did you go to elementary school?
So I grew up in Tacoma, and I went to elementary school in Fircrest. It's called Wainwright Elementary School, and I think they've actually rebuilt my elementary school and my middle school and my high school since I left the Tacoma area. So Wainwright Elementary School, Hunt Middle School. It's called junior high back in my day, and Wilson High School, all in Tacoma.
Do you have a funny story from elementary school, or do you remember one of your favorite teachers?
I remember a couple of my favorite teachers. A funny story might be that my 6th grade teacher, Terry Burns, who was really a great, really fun teacher, used to let us, what you would call it karaoke today, but we would call it lip syncing. We would get to stand in front of the class and sing songs that we've memorized. So that would be a fun memory. And it's funny to me because now you all call that lip syncing or karaoke or whatever. But I also had a great music teacher, William Boyd. So I started playing the violin when I was in 4th grade, and I played all the way through middle and high school until I graduated, so more than 10 years. And I was really close with my music teacher. I think he was probably the most significant teacher in my young life, was my music teacher, Bill Boyd.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like growing up with your twin, Janice?
We're very opposites, but we sound exactly alike. And in fact, my twin sister just recently retired from teaching, and she lives in Gig Harbor. But I don't know any other life besides being a twin. Right? So it was great. We shared a room most of our lives until I think we were in high school, and my older sister and brother moved out. And we went to the same university, Western Washington University, but we lived in different dorms until our senior year when we lived together. She was very studious and very tidy, and I was, a cheerleader, and I liked to go to parties, and I was very social. So we were really, really opposites that way. But I love being a twin. We're really, really close, really close. Yeah.
Are you guys identical twins?
We're fraternal twins. So I'm a couple of inches taller, and she is, I think she has lighter hair. We have different personalities, different interests. She went into teaching. She would never have done anything in broadcasting or media. She has a great singing voice. I don't at all. So just totally different interests.
Do you have a funny story about you and your twin?
Well, I have a lot of funny stories, but one I'll share is we got the chicken pox at the very same time. And she loves to tell this story about how we were all having lunch one day when we had the chicken pox, and she fainted and fell on me, and I thought she died, and I just went into hysterics. And so instead of everyone being concerned about her who had fainted, people were more concerned about me because I was, freaking out. It's funny now. Not so funny. It wasn't so funny then, but she likes to tease me about that.
It's funny. When you were younger, what jobs did you grow up thinking that you'd like to do when you got older?
Well, see, when I was very young, I always thought I wanted to be a pediatrician. And I would tell my parents, when I grow up, I want to be a pediatrician. But then as I got older, science really wasn't something I was super interested in. I really loved writing, storytelling, and English was something I excelled in. The science and chemistry, unfortunately, wasn't something that I had a great deal of interest in. And also, I think I grew up in a time when girls weren't really encouraged to pursue that, unlike now when girls really are encouraged to follow STEM areas. So initially I wanted to be a pediatrician, but very soon I sort of found my passion for writing in high school. And so by the time I got into 10th, 11th grade, and definitely in college, I knew I'd pursue something in writing and storytelling. Being on TV wasn't really a goal necessarily, but being in broadcasting sort of led me that direction. But that wasn't, I would say, the goal.
I actually wanted to be a ballerina when I was younger. But
you did? Are you still dancing?
No, I'm not. I think I did it in preschool and then maybe into first grade, but then I stopped doing it.
Did you
But
enjoy it? Do you like music?
yeah, I like music, just I'm not the best at dancing.
Well, maybe I started dancing really late in life. Maybe you'll take it up again later. A different form of dancing, maybe like Lindy Hop or swing or something.
Yeah.
You never know.
Is there any advice that you like to give to the elementary age students?
I think the biggest piece of advice is read as much as you can. Find stories, subject matter that you're interested in, even if it's comic or whatever interests you. Someone's writing about that, and read, 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 read. Read as much as you can.
I love to read too.
Yeah, good. That's good. What are you reading right now?
I recently finished the Harry Potter series, but I had to read the last two books, the sixth and seventh, on my computer since I can't get it at school or anything.
They're
But
scary, 6 and 7. Don't
yeah,
you think? How many times have you read them?
um, those were the first times that I've read the whole series, but I'm going to read them again, hopefully after everything clears
That's
up.
that's the one series I've heard kids read over and over and over again, and they get something new from it every time they read it.
It's really good.
Yeah, good for you. I'm glad you like to read.
What is your educational background?
So I went to Washington University, and my degree was in broadcast communications. So when I went to Western, they had a separate school for broadcast journalism and a separate school for print journalism. And now I think they've merged those two. And it's the School of Communications now. But my path was broadcast, so that's my degree. And it focused more on radio and television, broadcast production. But now it's merged. So a lot of writing, a lot of radio, voice, editing, visual, instruction.
Nice.
It's
What
really
job?
fun. I'm
What
sorry.
jobs did you hold before you became a news anchor?
Well, my very first job was at Kentucky Fried Chicken when I was 16 years old. And I loved that. I worked there, my twin sister worked there, and my little brother worked there too. But I also was a playground supervisor when I was in high school, and I was a lifeguard. So that was also one of my first jobs. My sister and I became lifeguards at 16. And in fact, we were the first African-American lifeguards in the city of Tacoma, way back in the day. So that was a very, very long time ago. So I did lots of different things, but I often had more than one job at a time, especially in the summertime. My parents liked to keep us busy, and they felt if we were busy, we would stay out of trouble. And I think that was a pretty good theory.
Yeah.
So
How long did you work in Spokane?
for just about 3 years. And my first job was actually as a weathercaster. So out of college, I went to Spokane to do an internship, which was required for graduation. And then that internship worked into a job. And I remember my general manager, Mr. Williamson, said, "Do you think you could do weather if we taught you how to figure that out?" And I learned how to do weather in a week. And I was their weekend weathercaster and weekday reporter. And so that's how I got my start. And I did that for 3 years in Spokane, and then I moved to North Carolina. And I was a weekend weathercaster, weekday reporter there for 2 years, and then I moved just to the anchor desk and was reporting and news anchoring after that.
That's cool. My sister actually goes to college in Gonzaga.
Oh, she does?
Yeah.
So does she like Spokane?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great city. It's grown a lot since I was there. I was there in the mid-'80s.
Yeah,
So.
she didn't know that much about Spokane because since it's so far away, but she likes it now.
Oh, good. It's a great town. People
Yeah.
are so nice. It's a beautiful area. A lot of snow in the winter sometimes, I remember. And it could be pretty warm in the summer, but it's beautiful.
Yeah. Did you meet Michael Jordan in North Carolina?
Actually, no. I met him while I was working at King. And this is before you were born, but there was an event in Oregon called the Goodwill Games. And I was actually doing a profile on Nike, the beginning of Nike and the swoosh symbol that became so famous. And he, you probably know, but you may not know, was the first major athlete to endorse a product, and it was Nike. And so since he was, such a big athlete at that time, if you're going to do a story about Nike, you have to talk to Michael Jordan. And since he was at this event in Portland, where, of course, Nike's based in Beaverton, I went down there to cover Nike and to talk to him at the same time. It was the hardest interview I ever had to get. It took 3 days to get that interview.
What was it like to talk to him?
You know, he could not have been nicer, more charming, more accessible, really down to earth. And the thing that I really liked about Michael Jordan is that I didn't know until I interviewed him that he had gotten cut from his high school basketball team. He was a ball boy. He really worked very, very hard to sort of, climb the ranks of basketball to become the outstanding player, star player that we all came to know. But it wasn't always easy for him. And so, he's really just like everybody else, but he was passionate about basketball and worked really hard to be the best at that. But he was super down to earth, really, really nice guy, super nice. It was everyone around him who didn't want me to interview him, but he was awesome. He was really great. Yeah.
Have you watched any episodes of The Last Dance that he stars in?
I have not.
I think I've watched a little bit of the first episode, but I just found out about it not that long ago.
What is it about?
I'm not positive on it, but it's about his story, how he came to be such a star at basketball, I'm pretty sure. So it seems good.
I bet it will focus a lot on perseverance and goal setting and being passionate about something and following dreams, I bet. I'm just guessing.
Can you tell us about your experience about being at the Seahawks Super Bowl win?
One of the best stories, one of the greatest experiences and privileges of my career. So my dad, he passed away several years ago, but was a huge Seahawks fan, of course, and as am I. And so, if you've been born or have been in Seattle for any period of time, we've been waiting forever for them to go to a Super Bowl. And we got robbed when they should have gone when they lost to Pittsburgh. And so when they finally did get to go to the Super Bowl, and it was in New York City, it was just unbelievable. First of all, it was just a magical season. Am I right, Wade? Just an unbelievable season. And I mean, there were so many games that season that they shouldn't have won. But by some miracle, they just pulled these games out in like the fourth quarter and the last minute or whatever. And so, I mean, I think there was just so much energy in the city. The team was so cohesive, the Legion of Boom, and it was just everything that year was just magical. And it was also in New York City. I mean, the Big Apple. And, I covered they went to the Super Bowl the year after, but honestly, it just didn't compare to the experience in New York, which you couldn't know if you've been to hadn't been to a Super Bowl before. So I thought they were all like that, but really, it was just unbelievable to cover the Seahawks.
What was your favorite memory that you remember about it?
I remember two things. It was really cold. It was 16 degrees. It was so cold in New York during the Super Bowl. And because I was doing morning news, I was, it was up early, not as early because it was East Coast time, but it was really cold. And I also will never forget the end of the Super Bowl game. And all the confetti, I was on the field, and all of the confetti's falling down, the blue and the gold and all of that, and seeing Russell Wilson holding the trophy and standing up on the stage and then walking across the field, and just the pride of the fans. Just all of that, I could see that all at once. It was a proud moment for Seattle. It was pretty awesome to be there on the field. Yeah, I have to say.
Love the Seahawks.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And the thing that I do know is that I appreciated it in the moment as it was happening. I knew that this kind of moment was probably never going to happen again, to be part of something like that, their first Super Bowl win, and to be in New York and to just be in that moment I felt really privileged to be there for that. And they were paying me. I mean, that's crazy. They were paying me to do it. So that even made it better. It was great.
How has social distancing affected you in your job?
How is it affecting you? How are you doing?
I'm good. I just don't get to go to school anymore and have to be on my computer.
Yeah. You don't get to see your friends as much.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I have my daughter's in college, and so she had to come home from California. She's been studying online just like you. She also has an autoimmune condition, so she can't go anywhere. She hasn't even been to the grocery store. So she's really, really hunkered down at home. And for the first 4 weeks, I was actually anchoring from my home. So the broadcast was from my home. And so in all the years I've been doing TV, I never imagined ever that I would be broadcasting a daily newscast, or let alone 3 or 4 from my house. So they had to come and set up a studio. I didn't have a teleprompter. There's a delay. There are all kinds of other technical barriers, obstacles that you have to get around to try to make it seem, for the viewer that everything's just normal. So it was really challenging. And also, you don't realize how connected you are to your colleagues on a daily basis, the creative energy that you have in a newsroom until you're not with them on a daily basis. So I did really miss that. And our newsroom's pretty empty. We have maybe 6 or 8 people here at a time versus 80 people here. So we are all really separated. Photographers and reporters aren't coming into the building. They're all at their homes, working from home and shooting in a variety of ways so that they're not in close contact. It's isolating, just like it is for everyone who's trying to get their work done. Even though I'm coming into the station, I feel really lucky that I get to see a few of my colleagues and talk to them. But yeah, it's been an adjustment for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
What is something that you've learned from the experience?
You know what? I've realized how much we just totally take for granted. I mean, so much. Basic things, simple things. I'm going to have a coffee with a girlfriend, or, walking to my neighbor's house to get sugar, or just basic, simple things. Sitting around in a group meeting and exchanging ideas because we don't have group meetings anymore. Or just being able to, go someplace with my daughter shopping because she just needs new shoes or something. She can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And so just basic, simple things. And also too, are just our general health. How I feel really lucky that everyone in my family has been healthy, but we do know somebody who has COVID, who was in the hospital, who just got off of a respirator, who's under 45, who doesn't have any medical, pre-existing conditions, who has children and all of that. And so it's made me really value my health too more.
Yeah.
And realize that we really shouldn't take anything for granted, because no one could have imagined that we'd be in this situation, that we'd have a pandemic, and that our whole lives would be turned upside down, and that we'd be looking at unemployment that's 20%, that could potentially be 30% in this country. That's worse than, I didn't even live through the Great Depression. So I don't even have context for that, but as bad as that. So
I didn't think it would turn out like this either. What time did you have to wake up for your news before everything happened?
Well, when I was working the morning news, I was getting up at 2:15 in the morning. But for 30 years I did that, 25 years. But I moved to nights, it's been almost a year ago, if you can believe it. And so now I go home in the evenings, I binge watch maybe one of my favorite shows. Right now, sometimes I watch Billions or whatever my daughter wants to watch. She likes all kinds of things. And so I sleep sometimes until 10, 11, on a really bad day till noon. So I'm getting much more sleep these days.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
You ever watch yourself on TV?
Yeah, I do occasionally watch shows that I've done, because I think that's the only way that you actually improve. And like with everything that you do, no matter how long you do it, there's always room to improve, whether it's my delivery, or how animated I am, or is my inflection too high or too low, or am I giggling too much? Do I have some, and I used to say actually all the time, just basic things like that. So yeah, I do watch probably once every week or two, pull up a show or two just to see how it looks.
You ever watch any other news broadcasters?
Mm-hmm. I do actually watch a little bit of all of the networks. So I watch CNN, MSNBC, Fox. I like to see how they cover things differently, because they are dramatically different. And as we all know, the truth's somewhere in the middle of all of that. I also really like to watch Lester Holt. I really miss Katie Couric. I loved watching her because I think she's just such a natural, authentic presenter of information. Great interviewer. She could ask really tough questions in a really nice way. So I watch lots of different people. But the thing about television and broadcasting, as I think I figured out a while ago, and I've learned through just others, coaches, etc. The best thing in TV is to just be yourself in anything you do, no matter what profession you choose. You have to just do you, really. If you try to mimic or try to be like someone else, I mean, viewers can tell it's not you, the authentic you. So that never works. So remember that. Just do you for real.
Okay, I will. What do you do when you goof up on TV?
So that's a good question, because my very first news director, I would get so flustered, especially when I first started out, because I'd mess up a lot, obviously. And this was in Spokane. And she pulled me in her office. Jan Allen pulled me in her office. First of all, let's just stop for a minute and say that my first news director was a woman, which was very rare back in the 80s, just for the record. So anyway, so she pulled me into her office and she said, listen, you're always going to mess up. You're always going to mess up. People don't really care if you mess up, but they do care how you recover. So just accept that you're going to mess up, but focus on how you're going to get out of it. And try to make that as smooth as it can be. So, mess up, but it's all in the recovery. So I try to remember that. And we make mistakes every day. Tapes don't roll. We think it's there, but it's not. The wrong script is up. The wrong video comes up. We go to black. It's going to be something different in the next show. Trust me, that I haven't thought of yet. It's going to happen. And so just have to try to recover as honestly and naturally and as you can without having, getting too upset about it on television. Ideally. Like you wouldn't want to say, not again on television, right? Because the viewer doesn't want to see that. So
Yeah.
That's a long answer to your question.
Okay. How's your job changed since you first started?
So when I first started, we don't have enough time to answer that question, but I'll just tell you a few ways. I started with a typewriter. We had paper scripts. We did not have the internet. We did not have mobile devices. We used newspapers, and we had AP printer copy that came on like a teletype machine that we ripped off. We literally ripped off stories off of a machine to edit them down on a typewriter. If we wanted to research something, we went to the library or we looked up newspapers. We had computers at some point, but we couldn't Google anything or look it up, on some kind of resource like you can now. So, it's just leaps and bounds changed. And now I can actually broadcast from my house on my phone. I have an app that would allow me to be on television. And some of our reporters literally are broadcasting from their phone. Never would have thought that could be possible.
Yeah.
For example. But it's changed so many different ways. We can go live anywhere, and we didn't have the internet. So we couldn't do this.
Yeah.
So I think it's just expanded everyone's world. We can go live from anywhere in the world, and we can see what's happening everywhere in the world.
Can you describe some more memorable moments you've had in your current job?
Let's see. Well, you're too young to remember, but I went to London when Princess Diana died. That was a significant story that I covered, only because the world was in shock, London especially. And her boys, Prince William and Prince Harry, were really young at that time. And so I have vivid memories of covering her funeral and just the feeling of the city during that time. I was also pregnant with my first baby, 7 months pregnant with my boy at that time, who's now 22. That was one of many stories. The start of the Gulf War, just before you were born. Significant because for me, that was the first war of memory for me. And obviously, the 9/11 was just I think, life-changing for everyone who lived through that. And it was many years, I think, before I could really look at tape of that, even though we covered it on that day and all of that. But there are lots of stories. I mean, the Super Bowl is right up there. I've interviewed so many incredible people. You know, Carter and Hillary Clinton, you know, actors, politicians, so many people, thousands probably over the years. But, you know, some of the most interesting stories have been really ordinary people who've done, you know, incredible things, who've started foundations or nonprofits, or kids who, you know, through one small act of kindness, you know, changes a whole school. You know, things like that have been stories that I think have been some of the most significant too. Mm-hmm.
That's cool. What was your favorite project, interview, or experience that you've had?
It's hard to pick a favorite. I mean, again, I would have to say, covering the Super Bowl for a week, the first one, and just, you know, living through that whole season was extraordinary. Now, I also, you know, the 2016 election was unlike any election we've ever had in our lifetime. And I went to Washington, D.C. to cover the inauguration of President Trump, which was a first for me too. Just to see democracy in motion. And that was also, I think, a huge deal, and something that I've always wanted to do, sort of on my bucket list. I went to the White House with the Seahawks when they went to the White House after they won. That was awesome, reporting from the White House lawn. That was on my bucket list of things I always wanted to do. Let's see. I have not yet covered the Olympics. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that, since now it's been put off and I wasn't planning to go to Tokyo. But you know, it's hard to pick one story because so many world life events have happened, and you know, coronavirus is a big story, for example, and you know, then eventually there's going to be the development of a vaccine, and that's might be developed here for all we know. So I mean, there's just so many stories. I couldn't pick one. There've been too many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've had working relationships with two very important women in the TV industry. Sorry. What are some stories that you can tell us about Dorothy Bullitt and Jean Anderson?
So Dorothy Bullitt was at KING5 when I was hired, and so I was hired at King in 1988. She's a legend, as you know, and I still to this day think that the legacy of King is very much founded on what she always wanted King to be, what her vision of a broadcast company was, which is really based in community service, in the community and to serve the community through the telling of news, but also just in showing up and helping the community, nonprofits, etc. She was just something else. And I didn't know Dorothy Bullitt personally very well. And she, you know, when I was hired, I was just a little, you know, newbie, and she was in the big office. But she was in part of the group that hired me. Jean Anderson, of course, I watched Jean when I was in high school and never thought I'd ever be able to work with her. And she was just such a great mentor. And it just was so great to work with her for many, many years that we worked together. I remember the first time I anchored with Jean, I was so nervous, sitting next to her co-anchoring with Jean. I'm thinking, like, what am I doing here? What is happening now? I was so nervous. She would probably laugh at that now because it was so long ago. I'm sure she doesn't remember. But she has given me some great life advice over the years too. Just like about raising kids, and I was looking for childcare once. I was working in the middle of the night, and I was asking her about how do you find somebody who's the right person to take care of your kids when you're gone, and just all kinds of things. I mean, she's a super down-to-earth person. But yeah, she was a great role model, a great journalist, brilliant woman, a really nice person. Yeah.
That's cool. Since we live in a small community, would you like to give advice to the graduating class of 2020?
Well, I have a son who's graduating this year from college next week. I don't think 22-year-olds listen to a lot of advice from their parents. But for 18-year-olds, 17 or 18-year-olds, you know, I think, and this is because I have a 19-year-old now, and well, she's 20 and a 22-year-old. So I think the advice I'm going to give is advice I wish someone had given to me when I was 18. Will that work?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So I think that when you go off into the world, if you're going to college or a trade school or whatever it is you've decided to do after school, and if whatever it is, that it's what you want to do. That I hope you've taken in all of the information and that you're making a decision that is the right decision for you. But that as you move ahead in the world, that you're making that are really the best for you. That you're not doing it because your parents want you to do it, or your friends want you to do it, or your grandparents are expecting it of you. That you decide for yourself what you want in the world and you go after that and do it for yourself. I think that's what brings happiness. And if you can, you know, if you can find happiness for yourself and find what you're passionate about and do that thing, then the rest of it will work itself out.
Good
So
advice.
just find what you're passionate about and do that because you want to do it.
And this is the one last question. It might be a little bit different, but do you have a coworker who acted like a big brother while you were dating?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Rich Marriott's right up there. David Curley, who I just talked to last week. Let's see, Lou Gallos. So, and who else? Carlos Del Valle. They all, when I would have a boyfriend, they would all basically give him the big thumbs down until I finally met my husband and they finally said, okay, this guy maybe will pass muster. They were the worst when I was dating. In fact, I remember once, one of my colleagues called me into his office and said, this guy, you're firing him tomorrow. He is out. I was in my, mind you, I was in my mid-20s then. But yeah, they all have been big brothers. But Rich Marriott, we've been close for a really long time. Yeah, I would say he's probably the top of the list. He's a really good friend.
So I'll just butt in right here. In our interview with Rich today, Rich told us to ask you that question.
Oh, he did?
Yes.
He knew how I was going to. That was a setup.
That was
Rich Marriott, that was a setup. That's so him. Darn it, I'm hugely disadvantaged now. That's so funny. That's so Rich.
So Millie, why don't you just go ahead and end by thanking Joyce, and I'll stop the recording, and then we could talk a little bit at the end if you want to talk to Joyce a little bit more. And then, okay, so Millie, so why don't you go ahead, we'll get that recorded as well.
Can I add one thing to a question she asked me earlier?
Well, of course.
Before you stop. You asked me about what I've learned during coronavirus and how it's changed our work environment. So it's sort of an addendum to that. One thing that I think has become really apparent in the coronavirus is a lack of access, especially in education, for schools and kids that don't have computers and Wi-Fi, and the disparity in learning and their ability to learn and teachers' ability to teach, because there's not parity in between school districts or schools or even states. And I think that if anything comes out of this pandemic, besides a vaccine, I hope that we figure out how we can really give kids equal access truly to education. And that has to start with technology. And we have the wherewithal to actually provide that to every school in the country and every child. So that would be my wish out of this pandemic. Okay, that's what I wanted to add.
Okay, Millie, go ahead. I'm going to mute myself again.
Thank you for letting us interview you. It was super fun, and I love watching you on the news.
Oh, Millie, thank you for asking me. It's been an honor to talk with you. I think you're going to find editing's a challenge because you have now so much to edit through. Good luck with that. I wish you the best. And really, it's been a privilege. And keep up your great work. I can see you're going to be doing great things ahead. So take care of you and your family. I hope all the kids and all the teachers and all the parents, everyone in your world, stay safe and healthy.
Thank you.